Right Meat presents Rapsidious by Joseph Gatz. Read by Pumpkin Patch 1234. Edited by Xufei Liu. Part 2. Bob. A pocket similar to that which opened above San Francisco opened again on Earth. This time, the purple light poured out into the confines of a mid-sized townhouse in the suburbs of Lawndale, California. And instead of falling out, as the Witch of the Barrens had, this figure casually walked out. He was a dark-skinned man with a muscular body. The light dusting of hair on his head stretched out over his face in a neatly trimmed mustache and beard. He was nude, just as the witch had been, and looked around the neatly decorated bedroom as the portal behind him abruptly closed. The dwelling differed from what he had expected. As he explored his surroundings, he gave himself a pleased and nodded his head with quiet approval. In the master bedroom, he found a photo of the man he was looking for set in a frame on the nightstand. The picture was of a middle-aged Caucasian man with light brown hair and a light dusting of beard and mustache hair. He was standing with a view of the Grand Canyon behind him. To his side was a red-headed woman with a coy smile and barely noticeable freckles who held his arm within her own. His hand rested on a small child who stood in front of them and made the peace symbol with his fingers, smiling with a toothy grin. The figure observed the man in the photo closely, particularly his clothing, a USC shirt and cargo shorts. The top layer of the figure's body slowly morphed to mimic the clothing of the man in the picture. He looked down at his own body, pleased by what he saw. This was his first time taking a corporal form. Before he entered this world, he was nothing more than a thought without form. Now, by the will of his people, the unbounded, he had a form and function. He needed to ensure that he was the one who found the ring. The figure walked around the house like a man viewing a property he might wish to buy. He flipped every switch, surprised when a corresponding light would come on. He was particularly amused when he found the sink in the kitchen. He turned on the tap and chuckled as water began to pour out. He cupped his hands, allowed it to fill, then brought it up, rubbing it into his face and smiling. He then found the couch and sat down. A cat that had been hiding until that point walked over to his leg and rubbed itself against him, letting out a loud, rolling purr. He was startled at first, but the figure gently rubbed the cat and picked it up with both hands, holding it so that he could stare into its fate. "Hello," he said. "Meow," said the cat. "Meow," said the figure. "I know of you. Cat. But soft is so much more pleasant than I thought it would be." "Meow," said the cat again. He laid the cat on his lap and petted it. On the coffee table in front of the couch, he reached over and found a TV remote. It was covered in unfamiliar hieroglyphics, which he studied until he assessed the knowledge to read them. He then hit the on button. In front of the couch, the 55-inch TV screen turned on and CNN appeared. Anderson Cooper was discussing the news of the day. The figure's face contorted into a grimace of confusion, and he leaned forward towards the TV. Pointing softly with his finger at the screen, a light burst of soft blue energy shot out and hit the TV, causing it to rock on its base. For a second time, the figure made a soft to himself. He sat watching TV and petting the cat for several hours. Upon learning he could change the channel, he kicked his feet up on the coffee table and allowed himself to truly enjoy the experience. By the time the owner of the house, the one from the photograph, arrived home, the figure was watching Real Housewives of New York and laughing along at their antics. Hearing the TV turned on, the man named Peter Clausen walked into the living room and froze when he saw the figure standing there. He wasn't shocked to see a stranger in his home. He was shocked that, though he had never met this man before, he recognized him as one of his. They were both members of the Unbounded. After a lot of explaining, Peter convinced his wife to get back into the car and go to her sister's house. Fortunately, their child was at school. She argued against leaving, but he convinced her that there was a smell of natural gas coming from somewhere within the house, and that he would wait for the utility company. After she drove away with a trunk full of goods from Costco, he re-entered the house. The figure picked up the remote, pointed it at the TV, and clicked the off button. "What are you doing here, man?" asked Peter. "What am I doing here?" asked the figure. "What are you doing here? You've been gone for thousands of human years. You didn't capture the ring when it was claimed the last time, and now I find you here? To use a human phrase, living your best life?" "I know someone new claimed it. I felt it." Peter ran his hand over his heart, then moved it over his face and head. The power of the ring has resonated throughout his spirit. "I came home and expected... Actually, I don't know what I expected. Something. Not you. Not for them to send somebody else. I was supposed to seek the ring. That's my function, man. My job. That's why I'm here." "Yes, it's been claimed again. The path to this universe is only unobscured when a vessel claims the ring. We felt it, and knowing you had failed in your task, sent your sister to retrieve it. First of all, it's not a failure. The ring isn't going anywhere. I just haven't gotten to it yet. And second, you sent the witch? No wonder I've been feeling so weird lately. Is she the one that turned back time? Because we both know how damaging that's supposed to be." "No," said the figure with regret. "Our sister is overly dramatic and violent to a fault, but she is not a fool. It was the ring bearer who reversed time." The ring bearer? That's not supposed to be possible," said Peter. "I mean, Jesus, these are simple creatures. Their minds are so limited. They got potential, don't get me wrong, a lot of potential, but they're just not there yet. There's no way one of them could use the ring to do that. Are you sure it was him? His ability with the ring has surpassed anything we've seen from humans before. So since both you and your sister failed, they've sent me to make sure the task is completed." Peter walked over and sat next to the figure on the couch. The cat came over to him to be petted again, but Peter quickly shooed it away. "So, big guy, what is your function then?" "My function is you," said the figure. "My purpose is your purpose. You will do what you are meant to do, or I will erase you." "Oh," said Peter. "I have questions," said the figure. "First, why are you here? When your sister failed, she returned home immediately. But when you failed, you remained here. Why?" Peter sighed and ran his hands through his hair in a very human show of exasperation. "What can I say? This world has grown on me. The humans, they've grown on me too. They're so simple, but their perception of linear time is beautiful. They live knowing they're gonna die. They know the clock is ticking, and it forces them to do great things with what they've got. And they keep going even after they die through what they call kids. It's actually pretty amazing. By combining a little something from two humans, they make a little baby one. Almost every animal on this planet does it, but humans add emotion to it, like they really love each other and their children. Well, I mean, most of them, but that's a whole different conversation. We've become aware that you have taken part in this procreation. How did you accomplish this?" "It's not real," said Peter. "I mean, it is, and it isn't. I just let a bit of myself split away from my body, and it fertilizes one of their eggs. It took a lot of practice, but if I do it right, my extension is birthed in the same way that humans are. Dude, I have never, ever experienced anything like it before. It's incredible. The sensation of being within the actual womb of a living, breathing human being is everything. Then, my mother," he said with air quotes, "gives birth to me. I mean, I've literally witnessed the birth of entire universes, and nothing compares to this. Being cared for and fed from the breast of my mother? Caressed, bathed, nurtured? Human mothers have given birth to an extract of myself thousands of times during my time on this planet, and never has gotten old. I swear, if all of us in the Unbounded just tried it once, just once, man, I believe it would forever change the way. Enough! I'm not here to entertain your mortal flights of fancy. I've come to ensure that you collect the ring. That is my sole function. Collecting the ring is your sole function. I'm not going back, said Peter. Not until I'm done here. I'll get you the ring, I'll send it back with you. But I'm not leaving. The figure rose to his feet with a slow, determined purpose. Any contentment in his face that had previously existed suddenly evaporated. His eyes grew cold, dark and deep within them. The tint of an ancient blue flame burned with furious intensity. Around the figure, the room darkened as the light that came in through the window seemed to be negated by his very existence. His corporal form grew and expanded in indefinable ways. He approached Peter and completely dwarfed him. His voice, that had previously been normal by any human standard, now grew raspy and low like a terrible secret that was simultaneously whispered and shouted. Do not confuse the absolute of my purpose, brother. I am not as carelessly flagrant with the lives of these limited bipedal creatures as was our sister. But I will grant each of them eternal life and then freeze their planet in the black flame of the abyss, so that they can live in anguish until the universe collapses in on itself eons from now. You will comply with my commands. You will help me find the ring of Rapsidious, and you will return to our realm and take your place amongst the unbounded. Bob, said Peter as he fastened his seatbelt, if we're going out into the world, people expect you to have a name. Your name is Bob. The figure, now back to his former size and stature, adjusted himself in Peter's 2016 Honda Civic. It was comfortable for the most part, just unfamiliar. Bob, said the figure. Short for Robert. Yeah, I guess, said Peter, but you don't want to be Robert. Bob is more friendly. People in this world respond to friendly. Bob is someone you invite to your barbecue. You introduce him to your sister. We like Bob. Robert is your jerk supervisor who makes you work an extra shift on the weekend when he knows you've got plans. So, you're Bob. Now put your seatbelt on, Bob, or you'll get me a ticket, said Peter, tugging at his own safety belt to show what he expected. Bob looked at Peter incredulously, his mouth agape. Why are you wasting time? The vessel already has a mastery of the ring. There is no telling how powerful he's becoming. We have the power to travel anywhere unencumbered. This is nonsense. You can't just fly there, Peter muttered. Are you crazy? I don't know what our sister told you, but people aren't like they used to be. They don't just believe in magic. Nobody will be able to handle a pair of grown men flying alongside Highway 2 in the middle of the day. So if you want to go, Peter again tugged at his seatbelt. Bob relented and put his seatbelt on. With that, Peter opened the garage and they pulled out, starting on their way. So, said Peter, the time jump. Do we know how bad it was yet? The effects haven't fully impacted us yet. There are cracks in the threads of this universe's time structure, but no serious fractures. Is it going to collapse? Can we fix it? With the ring, it is possible. Well, what if we don't get the ring? Asked Peter, looking over at his companion as he drove through midday traffic. Then this universe will collapse. Its history will be erased. All adjacent universes will be affected. It could cause a chain reaction that will destroy all time in this quadrant of the beyond forever. So you're saying it would be bad, said Peter. Got it. Bob turned to look at his unbounded brother with a cold, humorless stare. You're gonna need to lighten up, man, said Peter, or you're not gonna make it here. The two rode in silence as Peter pulled onto the freeway. The expansiveness of human civilization struck Bob. There didn't seem to be a place that he could look where a man's hand hadn't touched. They drove for over an hour in silence and never escaped man's influence. Where are you taking me? Asked Bob. Where are we going? How do you take your eggs, honey? Asked the waitress in the Overland truck stop restaurant near the Los Angeles International Airport. Over medium, said Peter, who sat in a booth near the back across from Bob. And let me get that with fruit instead of hash browns. Oh, and I want extra bacon. It comes with bacon, said the curly-haired brunette waitress, busy jotting down his order on a flip-over pad. I want that bacon, said Peter with a smile. And then I want extra bacon, so lots of bacon. Peter's smile was infectious. He was a good-looking man, but with a smile, he became movie star handsome. The waitress returned his smile and sharply exhaled through her nose, then turned to Bob. Okay, she said. How about you? Bob looked at her like someone being asked for directions to some place he'd never been. He then looked at Peter, then the waitress again. How about me what? He asked. What can I get you, sweetie? She said. Bob, flustered, turned to Peter. What are we doing here? I eat, said Peter. You should eat, too. It's a bonding experience. Besides, we got some things to plan out. This is the type of place people go to plan things out. Come on, have a meal with me. I don't eat. I don't require it, and neither do you, said Bob. Actually, said Peter, I've gotten in the habit of eating. If you're going to be here for a while, you've got to fit in. Do you guys need more time? Asked the waitress, who had slowly been inching herself away from the conversation. No, said Bob. Yes, said Peter. Just hold on. He looked intently at Bob and extended his hand over the table. Take my hand. Learn what it's like to eat. You'll love it, I promise. Then we'll talk. Figure out how we're going to get the ring. It'll be a whole thing. Bob hesitated, then sighed, shook his head, and extended his hand across the table. He took Peter's hand, and they were both noticeably shaking for a moment. Bob closed his eyes as the memories and information needed not only to understand what it was to eat, but how to mutate his body to allow it flowed into him. Internally, he developed a digestive system. His tongue sprouted buds, and he cringed as the first sensation of taste reached his brain. I'll come back, said the waitress. No, said Peter, still holding Bob's hand. Look, my friend isn't from around here. He's in the military. We both were. And in our unit, we only ate to survive. This will be his first time eating real food in a long time. Peter meant ever, but that really was a long time. Why don't you bring him your favorite meal? Whatever you think someone who's never eaten here absolutely has to try. I don't know, honey, she said. I don't even know what he likes. He likes everything. He wants to try everything. She thought for a moment, looking at other tables for ideas, then had a sudden epiphany. So like a sampler? Sure, perfect. Bring him that. Oh! Peter's eyes grew wide. And dessert. Bring him a hot fudge sundae. All the toppings. Make it real big. All right, she said, collecting their menus. Big breakfast plate for you, a sampler, and a hot fudge for him. Do you want whipped cream on that, sweetie? Bob still had his eyes closed, but slowly pulled his hand away from Peter as he slowly absorbed the new sensations inside of him. His new stomach began to rumble and saliva formed in his mouth. It was overwhelming, but interesting. Yes, said Peter. Lots of whipped cream. All right, she said. After a moment, Bob finally spoke. Why do you do this? Asked Bob, finally opening his eyes. What is the purpose? What's the point of anything? Asked Peter. Just enjoy it. I am not enjoying this, he said. You will, said Peter. You'll see. The waitress returned shortly after with 2 glasses of water and 2 cups of coffee. Peter grabbed a few tubs of creamer from the table and poured them into each cup. He then added sugar and slid one over to Bob. Bob watched as Peter brought a cup up to his face and drank from it. Curious, he did the same. The coffee was warm, sweet, and pleasurable to drink. He took another sip, this time allowing the coffee to rest in his mouth before swallowing it. It was smooth and comforting. He then switched to the water. It was cold to the touch, and the ice inside danced against his lips. It was a different but interesting feeling. "So how do you want to do this?" asked Peter. "'Cause I've got some ideas." At first, Bob said nothing. He was entranced by the new sensations. He began to smell all the food being cooked in the kitchen. His new stomach twitched and groaned in anticipation. It was interesting, but also distracting. His function did not allow for distractions, but he didn't want it to stop. Not yet. "I have a theory about the ring," continued Peter. "I've always figured that it's got to put out some kind of radiation. At its core, it's basically just an energy source, right? I mean, it's different from the type of energy that's native to this world, but it's still just energy. I built a lab in the desert to search for radiation. It's pretty freaking cool, actually. It's in an old missile silo. The ring has been sleeping this whole time, so I haven't been able to test any of my equipment, but now that it's active again," he shrugged. "Equipment?" asked Bob. "You've allowed these sensations to poison your mind. Your function is to seek. You require no aid in the fulfillment of your function. At your core, you can sense the ring. You can feel it. It will guide you." "Of course I can," said Peter. "You can feel it too. I guess maybe I feel it stronger than you do, but this is a planet full of 7 billion people. It's a huge place, and I can't pinpoint the exact location of the ring. Hell, I don't even know if it's on this continent. And what if the vessel's hiding? All we know is that he's male. That's all I can sense. He's the only one who holds the ring, and he's hiding like a needle in a haystack. What if he doesn't even want to be found? The ring has always sought out the bravest of this race. He will not hide, nor will he run. When we face him, he will fight, and we will destroy him. People go against their nature all the time, Bob." "Like you?" asked Bob. "Sure," said Peter. "I guess." "No," said Bob. "It is chaos that the ring bearer will seek out. He'll seek it out so he can put an end to it. He will see himself as a savior for these people. A hero. We've seen it happen before. All we have to do is give him a reason to act, and the ring will bring him to us." "Okay," said Peter. "How do we do that?" Bob held up his hand and looked at it. His pinky finger changed, losing its rigidity and wiggling unnaturally until it fell away from his hand, landing on the table. Peter put his hand over his mouth in shock. The finger then moved with purpose and determination. It slithered quickly until it fell from the table and bore its way into the flooring of the restaurant. Soon it was gone, and all that was left was a small hole. "Okay," said Peter. "What the hell was that?" "I have summoned a golem," said Bob. "I created it from my own flesh, and now it lives with a will of its own. It will create the chaos we seek." "A golem? What are you talking about? That was your finger, man. You can't just create magical finger monsters. That's weird. What if someone noticed that? I mean, you know what happened to our sister, right? I saw it before the time rupture. I saw what she did and what they did to her. These people will not just let weird magical stuff be. These people don't matter. If we don't succeed in our function, none of them will exist." "Okay," said Peter. "I get it. We gotta get the ring. But a finger? What's that even gonna do? It's a finger. It's like an inch long. How is a finger going to create chaos?" The waitress brought the food to the table and quickly hurried off to another table that needed her. Bob regarded all the food with anticipation. He reached out and grabbed a cherry from the top of the hot fudge sundae and ate it, stem and all. Said Bob. "You're right. This is delicious." "What's up, guys?" said Peter from his YouTube channel. "Welcome back to the channel. I just want to talk about how I finally hit 100,000 by investing in dividend stocks with Robinhood in my 90-day dividend challenge. I want to make sure you remember to like and subscribe." Bob and Peter sat in Peter's living room with his TV tuned into CNN, his laptop, which was on the coffee table, was set to MSNBC, and his iPad sat on Peter's lap. He was checking on how many views his latest video had. Bob looked over at the iPad screen and then looked at Peter. "What is that?" asked Bob. It's how I make money, said Peter. I invest in the stock market and make videos about it. Honestly, I rely more on the income from the videos than from the investing. Money, asked Bob. What purpose do you have for money? As he spoke, Bob reached over for a handful of trail mix that Peter had brought over for him. When they arrived, the family-sized bag had been full. Now it was nearly empty. This house, my car, the food in the refrigerator, it all costs money. Nothing's free on this planet. But what purpose do you have for money? Why have you created this life for yourself in this world? Why didn't I come home? Asked Peter. Is that what you mean? Yes, said Bob. How could any of this compare to rejoining the Unbounded? Breaking news from Chicago, reported the TV. Peter and Bob leaned in, expecting the news to be of the chaos they had unleashed. A gunman has opened fire in a mosque in downtown Houston. There are 3 reported deaths. We now go to Houston with more. Ugh, said Peter. That's not going to be it. So much chaos on this planet already. It's no wonder the ring hasn't allowed us to bring it home. Have you thought about that? Said Peter. Maybe the ring belongs here. Maybe these people need it more than we do. And what have they done with it? This world is ending and they don't have the ability to perceive it. When time collapses, they'll never realize it's happened until there is no one left for it to matter. The ring is too powerful. It must come home. I don't know, man. I don't think the ring came here just to allow its barrier to undo reality. I think there's more to it than that, said Peter. It is not your function to question why you are here, said Bob. Yeah, I get it. We've all got a purpose, right? Well, maybe I made my own. I pity you, said Bob. You've been gone for so long, I believe you have lost your way. Perhaps when we are done here and you return home, you'll remember. This is a CNN special report, interrupted the TV with a full-screen graphic. We now go to our correspondent in Los Angeles. The camera angle was above the city shot from a helicopter. In the lower right-hand corner, the photo of a reporter indicated who was narrating the video. As the camera panned over the city, a sinkhole appeared near the center, with buildings falling into it as it expanded in slow, pulsating movements. As the buildings fell, circular razor teeth spun inside the hole, shredding everything that entered. Peter stood up in astonishment and slowly approached the TV. When we first got here, said the reporter, the hole was only 2 city blocks in size. Now we can see that it's nearly tripled in size. The LAPD have mobilized to contain this disaster and are attempting to evacuate the area, but it's still unclear what this phenomenon is. Inside, the hole appears to have animal-like teeth that are spinning within its, I guess you'd call it a mouth. It's a truly terrifying sight, and I've never seen anything like it. Around the edges, the camera zoomed in as the reporter spoke, you can see that people running away from it are falling in. There have to be thousands of people down there. From the hole, a long snake-like tongue rose from the center. It was thick and brown and gently rocked from one side to the other as it gained altitude like a cobra. Suddenly, it whipped around, and before the camera went black, they could see the tongue shooting towards the helicopter. Are you crazy? Asked Peter, turning to face Bob, who was emptying a can of Pepsi into his ravenous mouth. I'm serious. Are you insane? He will come, said Bob. This will bring him. And if it doesn't? Asked Peter. What if he's in Japan? What if he's 10,000 miles away? What if he's just sitting at home watching this on TV too? The golem will eventually give up and move on. If he is not there, he will eventually find him. Eventually find him, said Peter. You mean this thing, your freaking finger, is just gonna keep popping up around the planet like a mobile Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi? It will fulfill its function. You said this guy is gonna try to be a hero, right? Yes. He will attempt to stop the destruction. That's how we will know who and where he is. Have you ever thought that maybe he'll try to stop time again? He's already done it once, thanks to the witch. If he does it again, this universe might not survive it. The Unbounded have taken steps to ensure that time is not manipulated again. There is a new development in the chaos in Los Angeles, said the TV. We now go to our regional affiliate with their correspondent. The video feed went to an above-ground vantage point. This time, it seemed to be from a rooftop close to the edge of the sinkhole pit. The audio feed recorded the sounds of deafening screams coming from within the pit, and from within it all, a low, growling hiss. The camera then panned up where a woman, whose face was obscured by the blinding sunlight behind her, floated in the air above the pit. Without warning, she dropped down into the pit like an anchor. Peter turned to look at Bob, who suddenly grabbed his own hand where the pinky should be and winced in pain. When he pulled his hand away, a steady stream of blue blood poured from where his finger had been. The two men looked back at the screen. The woman flew out of the hole with another woman within her arms. As she rose up above the pit, the air around her began to swirl visibly like a tornado. Its intensity grew, and when it reached its apex, and she shot off into the horizon within the sharp crack of a sonic boom. From the camera's point of view, the windows of every surrounding building shattered, the glass raining down on the dead creature below. Thanks for tuning in again. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And come back next week for part 3.